For 3,000 years, the Galactic Council believed dragons were extinct, wiped out in the Great Purge that cleansed the universe of its most dangerous species. They were wrong. One survived, chained in the deepest cargo hold of a derelict ship, waiting for someone foolish enough to free it. That someone was Marcus Chun, a human engineer who never learned when to leave well enough alone. The galaxy is about to discover why humans are the only species crazy enough to befriend their nightmares, and why that makes them the most dangerous alliance the universe has ever seen. Some bonds are forged in fire. Others are forged in rebellion. This is the story of both. Marcus Chun had always been told he asked too many questions. Today, that curiosity was about to change the fate of the galaxy. The derelict ship floated in the Kepler void like a metal corpse, its hull scarred by centuries of micrometeorite impacts and cosmic radiation. Most salvage crews would have stripped the outer decks and moved on. Marcus wasn't most crews. Another sweep of the lower levels, he muttered into his comm unit, adjusting the plasma torch on his belt. The ship's registry identified it as the Eternal Wanderer, a Zephyrian exploration vessel that had gone missing 3 millennia ago. What bothered Marcus wasn't the age of the ship. It was the energy readings his sensors kept picking up from the deepest cargo hold. Dead ships didn't have energy signatures. Marcus made his way through corridors that hadn't seen light in 3,000 years. His boots echoed against metal floors thick with the dust of ages. Emergency lighting flickered to life as his presence triggered ancient sensors, casting eerie shadows that danced ahead of him like ghosts. The air recycling system wheezed to life, filling the corridor with the stale breath of millennia. Marcus checked his atmospheric readings. Breathable barely. The life support systems were running on fumes, powered by something deep in the ship's belly. As he descended through deck after deck, the energy readings grew stronger. Whatever was down there was big, and it was definitely alive. The cargo hold doors were different from the rest of the ship. Thicker, reinforced with metals Marcus didn't recognize. Warning symbols covered every surface in a dozen different languages, all saying the same thing. Do not open. Do not disturb. Do not approach. Well, Marcus said to himself, that's definitely not ominous at all. He ran his scanner along the doorframe. The energy signature was off the charts now, pulsing in a rhythm that almost seemed like breathing. His equipment identified trace elements in the air that made his skin crawl. Sulfur, ozone, and something else. Something that registered as organic, but not quite alive. The locking mechanism was unlike anything in Marcus's considerable experience. 7 different key systems, each requiring a different type of energy input. Whoever had locked this door hadn't wanted it open by accident, or by design. Marcus spent 3 hours working on the locks. Each one yielded to his tools and expertise, but reluctantly, as if the mechanisms themselves were reluctant to give up their secrets. The final lock required a DNA sample, which struck Marcus as odd for a ship this old. Genetic security was a relatively new concept. The massive doors ground open with a sound like the universe groaning. A wave of hot air rushed out, carrying scents that made Marcus's hindbrain scream warnings about predators and fire and death. He ignored the instinct and stepped forward. The cargo hold was enormous, easily 5 times the size of any standard freight compartment. And it wasn't empty. Chains. Massive chains forged from some dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They stretched across the hold in a complex web, all leading to a single point at the center of the room, where something vast and terrible was sleeping. The dragon was nothing like the creatures from Earth's old stories. This was a being of living metal and crystalline scales, each one the size of Marcus's hand. Its wings were folded against a body that stretched nearly the full length of the hold, and, even in sleep, it radiated an aura of barely contained power. The chains weren't just restraining it, they were draining it. Marcus could see the energy flowing through the dark metal, siphoning away the creature's life force, and feeding it into the ship's systems. This dragon had been powering the Eternal Wanderer for 3,000 years. Marcus approached slowly, his mind racing. dragons were supposed to be extinct. The Galactic Council had made sure of that during the Great Purge, claiming they were too dangerous to exist alongside civilized species. But here was proof that at least one had survived. As he drew closer, the dragon's eyes opened. They were the color of molten gold, ancient beyond measure, and filled with an intelligence that made Marcus feel like a child in the presence of a god. The creature couldn't move, Marcus realized, not with those chains binding every part of its body, but its gaze followed him with predatory precision. "Hello there," Marcus said softly, feeling slightly ridiculous for talking to what was essentially a living weapon of mass destruction. "That looks incredibly uncomfortable." The dragon's eyes narrowed, and Marcus heard something in his mind. Not words, exactly, but meaning that bypassed his ears entirely. 3,000 years, the voice said, carrying depths of pain and rage that made Marcus stagger. 3,000 years of feeding these parasites with my essence. And now another comes to gawk at the mighty dragon brought low. Marcus steadied himself against a chain support. "Actually, I was thinking more along the lines of getting you out of here." The dragon's massive head shifted slightly, which was impressive given the restraints. "You would free me? A human would release the last of the dragons?" "Well, when you put it like that, it does sound kind of stupid," Marcus admitted. "But, yeah, probably. This whole setup is pretty clearly a violation of about 17 different Galactic Convention articles on sentient rights. The Galactic Council believes dragons extinct." "The Galactic Council believes a lot of things," Marcus replied, pulling out his plasma torch. "Most of them wrong. Besides, I've never been one to follow rules when they're obviously stupid." The dragon watched as Marcus approached the first chain anchor point. "You do not know what you do, human. I'm not some grateful prisoner who will shower you with rewards for my freedom. I am the last of my kind, because I was the most dangerous of my kind." Marcus began cutting through the first chain. The dark metal resisted his torch, but human engineering was persistent. "Yeah, I figured. The hole chained in the bottom of a ship for 3 millennia thing kind of gave it away. But here's the thing about humans. We're really bad at leaving well enough alone. You could die." "Could" is the important word there, Marcus said, sweat beading on his forehead as he worked. "Well, probably is different from could maybe. Besides, dying from dragon fire seems more interesting than dying from old age in a retirement home." The first chain snapped with a sound like thunder. The dragon's right wing shifted slightly, and Marcus felt a wave of heat wash over him. "Interesting," the dragon mused. "Most species beg for their lives when faced with death. Humans make jokes. We're a weird bunch," Marcus agreed, moving to the second chain. "Fair warning, though. If you do decide to roast me after I get you free, could you wait until I'm done? I hate leaving projects unfinished. You have a name, strange human?" "Marcus Chun." "You." "I am Pyraxis, last of the solar dragons, burner of worlds, death from the void." There was a pause. "Though I suppose those titles ring hollow when one has been chained like a battery for 3 millennia. Well, Pyraxis, nice to meet you. And just so you know, those chains aren't just holding you down. They've been siphoning off your energy to power this ship's systems. You've basically been in a magical coma." The dragon's anger was a physical thing, heating the air around them until Marcus had to step back. "They use me as a power source." "Looks like it. Pretty sophisticated setup, too. Whoever designed this really knew their stuff." Marcus moved to the third chain. "Question is why? Dragons were supposed to be wiped out in the Great Purge. Why keep one alive?" "Because," Pyraxis said grimly, "the Galactic Council needed to study what they feared most. How to kill us. How to control us. How to use us." Marcus paused in his cutting. "They've been experimenting on you?" "Not directly. But the ship, it was a research vessel. I have felt their instruments probing my mind for centuries, mapping my abilities, cataloging my weaknesses. They learned much about dragonkind from my imprisonment." The implications hit Marcus like a cold wave. They didn't just commit genocide. They kept samples. Now you begin to understand. Marcus attacked the third chain with renewed fury. "Yeah, well, today that ends." As he worked, Pyraxis told him the story. The dragons hadn't been mindless destroyers. as the Council's propaganda claimed. They had been explorers, scientists in their own right, pushing the boundaries of what was possible with the fundamental forces of the universe. Their crime had been refusing to submit to the Council's authority. So they labeled you as dangerous and wiped you out, Marcus said, starting on the fourth chain. All but me. I was different. Even among dragons, I was considered extreme. They kept me as their ultimate specimen. What made you different? I could do things other dragons could not. Manipulate matter at the quantum level. Survive in the void of space indefinitely. And I could bond with other species in ways that terrified the Council. Marcus looked up from his work. Bond how? Dragons were not meant to be solitary creatures. Marcus Chun. We formed partnerships with other species, sharing our power, our knowledge. Together, we could accomplish wonders that neither could achieve alone. The fourth chain snapped. Pyraxis's left wing stretched slightly, and Marcus felt the air pressure in the hold change. The Council feared this most of all, a bonded dragon, and their partner becomes something greater than the sum of their parts. We become unstoppable. And you think I'm partnership material? Marcus asked, moving to the fifth chain. I think you're the first being in 3,000 years to see me as more than a monster or a tool. That is significant. Marcus worked in silence for a while, processing this information. He'd come here looking for salvage, and instead found himself potentially forming an alliance that could reshape galactic politics. It should have terrified him. Instead, he found himself oddly excited. So if we do this partnership thing, he said finally, what exactly does it involve? A sharing of essence. You would gain access to my abilities, my knowledge, my power. I would gain your creativity, your adaptability, your human perspective on problems. And together, we would be capable of feats that would make the Galactic Council question every assumption they have ever held about the balance of power in this galaxy. The fifth chain parted. Pyraxis was now able to move his head freely, and he turned to look directly at Marcus. The weight of that ancient gaze was almost overwhelming. But know this, Marcus Chun. Such a bond, once formed, cannot be undone. We would be partners until one of us dies. And given my lifespan, that would likely be you. Marcus considered this as he started on the sixth chain. So I'd essentially be signing up for a lifetime of adventure, danger, and probably being hunted by every government in the galaxy? Yes. Sounds amazing. What do I sign? The dragon made a sound that might have been laughter. You truly are an unusual species. We try. The sixth chain snapped, and now only one remained. The massive restraint around Pyraxis's torso that seemed to be the primary anchor for the entire system. Marcus studied it carefully. This chain was different from the others, inscribed with symbols that seemed to shift and writhe when he looked at them directly. This one's more than just a restraint, isn't it? It is a binding, not just physical, but spiritual. It prevents me from accessing my full power, even if the other chains were broken. And cutting it would be dramatic. Marcus grinned. Good. I like dramatic. He began working on the final chain and immediately felt the difference. This wasn't just cutting through metal. It was like cutting through reality itself. The plasma torch sparked and sputtered, and strange energies crackled around the contact point. As he worked, the ship began to shake. The ancient systems, suddenly deprived of their 3,000-year power source, started failing one by one. Emergency lights flickered and died. The artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. Almost there, Marcus said, sweat pouring down his face as he fought to maintain his grip on the torch. Marcus, Pyraxis said urgently, when this chain breaks, there will be a release of energy. You should. The chain parted. The explosion of light and force sent Marcus flying across the cargo hold. He crashed into a bulkhead and slid to the floor, his ears ringing and his vision blurred. When his sight cleared, he saw Pyraxis rising to his full height, wings spread wide, scales glowing with inner fire. The dragon was magnificent and terrible, a being of such power that Marcus could feel it in his bones. For a moment, he wondered if he'd made a terrible mistake. Then Pyraxis spoke, and his voice carried notes of wonder and gratitude that transformed him from monster to person in Marcus's eyes. "Free," he whispered. "After 3,000 years, I am free." The dragon turned to Marcus, who was struggling to sit up against the bulkhead. "You have given me something I had thought lost forever, Marcus-chun. How can I repay such a gift?" Marcus managed a pained smile. "How about we start with getting off this ship before it falls apart completely?" Pyraxis lowered his great head until it was level with Marcus. "Climb aboard, my improbable friend. Let us see what adventures await a human engineer and the last dragon in the galaxy." As Marcus pulled himself onto Pyraxis's back, feeling scales warm as heated metal beneath his hands, he realized that his life had just taken a turn towards something extraordinary. The galaxy thought dragons were extinct. They were about to learn how wrong they'd been. And Marcus-chun, engineer and apparently dragon liberator, was going to help teach them. The Eternal Wanderer groaned around them as its ancient systems finally gave up their 3,000-year vigil. But Marcus wasn't worried about the dying ship anymore. He was thinking about the living universe that lay beyond its hull and all the impossible things he and Pyraxis were going to accomplish together. After all, he'd never been one to leave well enough alone. Riding a dragon through the vacuum of space, Marcus discovered, was nothing like the stories made it seem. For one thing, there was no wind. For another, the sensation of Pyraxis's scales beneath his hands felt less like riding a mythical beast and more like being integrated into a living spacecraft that happened to breathe fire. "This is incredible," Marcus said over their mental link, which had formed the moment he climbed onto Pyraxis's back. He could feel the dragon's amusement at his wonder, tinged with something deeper, a loneliness so profound it made Marcus's chest ache. "You adapt quickly," Pyraxis replied, his mental voice carrying undertones of surprise. "Most beings cannot handle the transition to vacuum flight without extensive preparation. Humans are stubborn that way," Marcus said, watching the Eternal Wanderer break apart behind them. The ancient ship's hull cracked along stress lines that had held for millennia, releasing clouds of frozen atmosphere that sparkled like diamonds in the starlight. "We tend to figure things out as we go." They flew in companionable silence for a while, Pyraxis's powerful wings carrying them away from the debris field and toward the nearest space lane. Marcus found himself marveling at the dragon's grace in space, the way he seemed to swim through the void as naturally as a fish through water. "I had forgotten," Pyraxis said eventually, "how beautiful the universe looks when you are not seeing it through the walls of a prison." Marcus felt the weight of those 3,000 years of captivity through their link. "I can't imagine. But you're free now. What do you want to do first?" The question seemed to surprise Pyraxis. His flight pattern wavered slightly. "I do not know. Revenge, perhaps. Find the beings responsible for my imprisonment and—" "Nah," Marcus interrupted. "Revenge is boring. Anyone can do revenge. What do you want to build?" "Build? Yeah. You said dragons were explorers, scientists. What would you create if you could create anything?" Pyraxis was quiet for so long that Marcus began to worry he'd overstepped some boundary. Then the dragon spoke, his mental voice soft with something that might have been hope. "There was a project, before the Purge, a way to heal damaged space." "Heal space? Like literally? Your species has not encountered it yet, but there are places in the galaxy where reality itself has been wounded. Black holes that should not exist, tears in space-time, regions where the fundamental laws break down. Dragons could repair such damage, but it required tremendous power and precise control." Marcus felt a thrill of excitement. "Show me." Pyraxis's course shifted, angling toward a nearby nebula. "There's a wound not far from here. A small one, but significant. If we could repair it, we'd prove that dragons weren't just destroyers," Marcus finished. "We'd prove they were healers." Yes. As they flew, Pyraxis began sharing more of his knowledge. The mental link between them deepened, and Marcus found himself understanding concepts that should have been far beyond his human comprehension. Dragon science wasn't like human science. It was more intuitive, more willing to bend the rules of physics through sheer force of will backed by incredible power. This is amazing, Marcus said, absorbing information about quantum harmonics and reality stabilization. But I don't understand how I'm able to process this. Shouldn't my brain be, exploding right about now? The bond changes you, Pyraxis explained, just as it changes me. Your neural pathways are adapting to handle new forms of thought. And I find myself thinking in ways I never have before, more flexible, more willing to consider alternatives. Marcus could feel it happening. His mind felt expanded, capable of holding ideas that would have been incomprehensible minutes earlier. At the same time, he sensed changes in Pyraxis, the dragon's ancient patterns of thought becoming more fluid, more creative. They approached the nebula, and Marcus saw what Pyraxis meant about wounded space. At the center of the colorful gas cloud was a region that hurt to look at, where stars seemed to bend in impossible directions, and light itself appeared to struggle. What caused that? Marcus asked. A weapon test, conducted by the Zephyrians about 5,000 years ago. They were experimenting with temporal distortion fields. The test went wrong, and it's just been sitting there ever since, growing slowly larger. In another few millennia, it will begin affecting nearby star systems. Marcus studied the anomaly with his newly expanded perception. He could see how the damage had propagated through space-time, creating cascading failures in the fabric of reality itself. But he could also see how it might be fixed. It's like a rip in a fabric, he said. You need to realign the quantum threads, and then... Exactly. Pyraxis's mental voice carried approval and excitement. You see it, but the power required is enormous. Even at full strength, I would need assistance. What kind of assistance? Another dragon. But as I am the last, Marcus felt inspiration strike. What if you didn't need another dragon? What if you had something else? Something that could channel and focus power in ways dragons never could. Pyraxis's interest sharpened. What are you suggesting? Human engineering. We're really good at making things more efficient, more precise. What if we build a device that could amplify and focus your natural abilities? The dragon was quiet for a long moment, considering. It might work, but the device would need to be constructed from materials that do not exist in your periodic table. And the precision required would be extraordinary. Leave the engineering to me, Marcus said confidently. You handle the physics. We'll figure it out together. As they began to work on the theoretical framework for their impossible device, Marcus felt something shifting in the universe around them. Not physically. This was deeper, more fundamental. The bond between them was creating something new, a synergy that neither human nor dragon science could have achieved alone. Marcus, Pyraxis said suddenly, "We are being followed." Marcus looked back and saw ships emerging from hyperspace behind them. Sleek vessels with the distinctive hull markings of the Galactic Council Enforcement Division. How did they find us so fast? The destruction of the Eternal Wanderer would have triggered automatic distress beacons. And my energy signature, it has been millennia since a dragon flew free. The sensors throughout this sector are undoubtedly screaming warnings. The lead ship's communications array lit up, broadcasting on all frequencies. Unknown vessel. You are in violation of Galactic Statute 1247. Possession of illegal weapons of mass destruction. Surrender immediately, or we will be forced to take action. Marcus laughed. Illegal weapons of mass destruction? They're talking about you. I am not a weapon. I know that. You know that. They're about to learn that. The Council ships began to spread out, taking attack formation. Marcus could see weapons powering up, shields coming online. These weren't exploration vessels. They were warships designed specifically for dealing with threats like Pyraxis. They came prepared. The dragon observed grimly. These ships carry quantum disruptors and reality anchors. Weapons designed to kill dragons. Yeah? Well, they designed those weapons based on data from dragons they'd already captured or killed. Marcus said, his mind racing through possibilities. They've never faced a dragon with a human engineer riding shotgun. What are you suggesting? Marcus grinned, the expression fierce with anticipation. I'm suggesting we show them what humans do best. We improvise. Through their bond, Marcus began sharing human tactical concepts with Pyraxis while simultaneously absorbing the dragon's understanding of energy manipulation and spatial dynamics. The result was something neither species had ever conceived of alone. "Can you phase shift your scales?" Marcus asked. "Phase shift? Yes, but why would Pyraxis pause as Marcus's plan came through their link? That is deviously clever. Humans are sneaky. Dragons are powerful. Let's see what happens when you combine the two." The first council ship fired, sending a stream of quantum disruptors toward them. The weapons were designed to disrupt the energy patterns that dragons use for flight and combat. They were also extremely expensive and had been tested extensively against captured dragon specimens. They had never been tested against a dragon who could selectively phase shift parts of his body out of normal space-time. Pyraxis twisted through dimensions Marcus couldn't quite perceive, becoming incorporeal just as the disruptors passed harmlessly through the space where he had been. Then, he rematerialized directly behind the attacking ship, his jaws opening to release a stream of plasma that had been focused through his newly modified breath weapon system. Marcus had helped him redesign it during their brief flight, turning it from a broad area weapon into a precise cutting tool. The plasma beam sliced through the ship's shields as if they weren't there and opened the hull like a surgeon's scalpel. The ship didn't explode. It simply stopped working, its crew safely evacuated to escape pods before they even realized they'd been disabled. "Non-lethal takedown," Marcus said approvingly. "I like it." "Your influence," Pyraxis replied, already moving toward the second ship. "My instinct would have been to incinerate them completely. And maybe later. Right now, I want to see their faces when they realize their super-secret anti-dragon weapons don't work." The remaining council ships began firing in concert, filling the space around them with a web of deadly energy. But Pyraxis was no longer fighting like a dragon. He was fighting like a dragon who had learned human tactics. He used the wreckage of the first ship as cover, phase-shifting through solid matter when convenient, and using Marcus's enhanced spatial awareness to predict enemy fire patterns. Each attack was precisely calculated for maximum psychological impact with minimum actual harm. The third ship lost its weapons array to a plasma burst that left the rest of the vessel completely intact. The fourth found its engines fused into immobility by technique that Pyraxis had improvised on the spot, combining dragon fire shaping with human mechanical knowledge. Within 10 minutes, the entire council squadron was floating dead in space, their crews safely evacuated, but their ships reduced to expensive scrap metal. "Not bad for a first time out," Marcus said as they surveyed their handiwork. "I have never fought like that before," Pyraxis admitted. "Precise, controlled, almost surgical. Welcome to human-style warfare. We don't like to waste things, even our enemies." As they spoke, Marcus noticed something interesting in the debris field. The council ship's computers were broadcasting emergency signals, but they were also uploading tactical data about the encounter. Information about Pyraxis' capabilities, his fighting style, his apparent partnership with a human. "They're learning about us," Marcus observed, as we were learning about them. "The bond works both ways, Marcus. I can sense their fear, their confusion. They expected to face a mindless beast. Instead, they encountered something unprecedented. A thinking dragon with human tactical support. Yes, and that terrifies them far more than simple destructive power ever could." Marcus considered the implications. They're going to send more ships, bigger ones, and they'll be ready for our tricks this time. Undoubtedly. Good. I was starting to worry this might be boring. Pyraxis' amusement rippled through their bond. "You are either very brave or very foolish, Marcus-chun." "Why not both?" Marcus replied. "Besides, we've got a space-time wound to heal. That's way more important than a few council warships." As they resumed their flight toward the anomaly, Marcus found himself thinking about the broader implications of what they'd just done. The Galactic Council had maintained order for millennia by being the biggest, most powerful force in the galaxy. They'd eliminated the dragons because dragons represented a threat to that dominance. But now the dragons weren't extinct, and more importantly, they weren't alone. The bond between him and Pyraxis was creating something entirely new, a fusion of human ingenuity and dragon power that could accomplish things neither species had dreamed of alone. If they could heal the space-time wound, they'd prove that dragons weren't just weapons or monsters. They were partners in building a better universe. And if the Galactic Council wanted to stop them, they were going to have to learn to fight an entirely new kind of war. Marcus Pyraxis said as they approached the wounded space, "I believe we are about to change the galaxy forever." "Yeah," Marcus replied, watching reality bend and twist around the ancient damage. "That's exactly what I was hoping for." The real adventure, he realized, was just beginning. The space-time wound pulsed like an infected cut in the fabric of reality, and Marcus could feel it trying to drag his sanity sideways into dimensions that shouldn't exist. Even with his enhanced perception, looking directly at the anomaly made his brain itch in ways that had no name. "Okay," he said, gripping Pyraxis's scales more tightly than necessary. "That's significantly more horrifying up close." "The damage runs deeper than I initially realized," Pyraxis replied, his mental voice carrying undertones of professional concern. "This is not merely a tear in space-time. The Zephyrian's weapon created a cascade failure in the quantum substrate itself." Marcus studied the anomaly with growing fascination and horror. Through their bond, he could perceive layers of damage that his human eyes couldn't process. Reality bent inward on itself in an impossible spiral, creating a region where cause and effect operated by rules that made quantum mechanics look straightforward. "It's like a cancer," he realized. "It's not just damaged, it's actively corrupting the space around it." "Yes, and it grows stronger with each passing century. In time, it will consume entire star systems. But you can fix it." "We can fix it," Pyraxis corrected. "Alone, I lack the precision necessary for such delicate work. Your engineering mind provides the focus I need." Marcus began running calculations through his enhanced consciousness, modeling the repair process with a combination of human mathematics and dragon intuition. The results were both encouraging and terrifying. "We're going to need to essentially rebuild reality from the quantum level up," he said. "And if we make even the slightest mistake, we create a cascade failure that makes this wound look like a paper cut." "Right? No pressure." As they worked out the theoretical framework, Marcus became aware of ships approaching from multiple vectors. Not council vessels this time. These are different, older, with energy signatures that felt familiar in ways that made his enhanced perception tingle. "Pyraxis," he said slowly, "please tell me those aren't more dragons." The great head turned, golden eyes focusing on the approaching vessels. "They are not dragons," Pyraxis said, his mental voice carrying notes of surprise and something that might have been hope. "They are much more interesting." The ships were beautiful in an organic way that reminded Marcus of living creatures. Their hulls curved and flowed like carved bone, and they moved through space with a grace that suggested biotechnology rather than mechanical engineering. As they drew closer, Marcus could make out details that his human eyes shouldn't have been able to see at such distance. One of the ships broke formation and approached them directly. A communications array activated, but instead of the usual subspace frequencies, it broadcast something that Marcus felt more than heard. A complex harmony of thoughts and emotions that bypassed language entirely. Through their bond, Pyraxis translated, "Greetings, last of dragons. We have come to witness the impossible." "Who are they?" Marcus asked. "The architects," Pyraxis replied with something approaching reverence. "They were old when dragons were young. We thought them extinct." The lead ship drew alongside them, and Marcus got his first clear look at the beings inside. They were tall and graceful with elongated limbs and faces that seemed to shift between different configurations depending on the angle of view. Their skin had a translucent quality that revealed complex patterns of light flowing beneath the surface. "We are not extinct," came the harmonious thought voice. "We simply chose to withdraw from a galaxy that had forgotten the art of creation. But you last dragon, and you, strange human, are attempting something we thought impossible in this age. You know what we're planning? Marcus asked. We know what you hope to accomplish. The healing of wounded space. It is ambitious beyond measure. Marcus felt Pyraxis's uncertainty ripple through their bond. Elder architects, we do not seek to intrude upon your domain. We merely wish to repair what has been broken. You misunderstand, young fire shaper. We do not oppose your efforts. We have come to assist them. The relief that flooded through Pyraxis was almost overwhelming. You would help us? We would help you because you represent something we have not seen in 3 millennia. The potential for genuine partnership between species. The bond you have formed creates possibilities that neither of your races could achieve alone. More architect ships were arriving, forming a loose perimeter around the space-time wound. Marcus could feel their presence like a supportive framework, ready to provide assistance and guidance without taking control of the process. Why is this so important to you? Marcus asked. Because, came the reply, tinged with ancient sadness. We once had such bonds ourselves. Before the Great Purge, before the galaxy chose fear over wonder, we worked alongside dragons and dozens of other species to build marvels that span star systems. The Galactic Council destroyed not just the dragons, but the entire philosophy of cooperative creation. Marcus began to understand the scope of what had been lost. The dragons weren't just powerful individuals. They were part of a network. The greatest network of scientific collaboration the galaxy has ever known. Dragons provided raw power and cosmic intuition. Architects provided precision and aesthetic harmony. Humans, it seems, provide adaptability and innovative thinking. Together, we might restore what was lost. As they spoke, Marcus noticed that the architect's ships weren't just observing. They were beginning to work, their unusual technology interfacing with the wound in ways that complemented Pyraxis's abilities. The dragon's cosmic fire provided the energy needed for large-scale reality manipulation, while the architect's tools allowed for precise quantum-level adjustments. What's my role in all this? Marcus asked. You're the bridge, Pyraxis explained. Your human perspective allows you to see solutions that neither dragons nor architects would consider. And your bond with me creates a conduit through which all our abilities can be coordinated. The work began slowly. Marcus found himself at the center of a web of consciousness that included not just Pyraxis, but dozens of architect minds, all focused on the delicate task of rebuilding reality. The experience was unlike anything in human experience, like being part of a symphony where the music was mathematics and the instruments were the fundamental forces of the universe. Through his bond with Pyraxis, Marcus reached into the wound and began to feel its structure. The damage was indeed like cancer, but cancer that followed rules he was beginning to understand. The Zephyrian's weapon had created a feedback loop in space-time itself, causing reality to recursively damage itself in an ever-widening spiral. It's a resonance cascade, he realized. The weapon didn't just tear space-time. It taught space-time how to tear itself. Precisely, the architects agreed. And to heal it, we must create a counter-resonance that will teach reality how to repair itself. The process was exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. Marcus found himself thinking in ways that stretched his enhanced consciousness to its limits, solving problems that required him to hold multiple contradictory concepts in his mind simultaneously. Through Pyraxis, he channeled energies that could have powered entire star systems, focusing them with precision that would have impressed a Swiss clockmaker. The architects provided harmonic support, their tools creating stable frameworks within which the more chaotic energies could work safely. It was like performing surgery on the universe itself, with Marcus as the primary surgeon, Pyraxis as his hands, and the architects as his instruments. Hours passed, or perhaps days. Time flowed strangely near the wound, making normal temporal measurements meaningless. Marcus lost track of individual identity, becoming part of something larger and more complex than any single consciousness could contain. And slowly, impossibly, it began to work. The wound started to close, reality reasserting its proper structure in an expanding wave of healing that Marcus could feel in his bones. The process wasn't gentle. It was like watching the universe perform surgery on itself, accompanied by energies that made supernovas look like candle flames. But it was working. It's actually working, Marcus said in wonder, watching space itself knit back together. Did you doubt it would? Pyraxis asked with amusement. Honestly? Yeah. This whole thing seemed completely insane from the beginning. Welcome to Partnership with Dragons, Pyraxis replied. We specialize in accomplishing the impossible through sheer, stubborn determination. As the healing progressed, Marcus became aware of other ships arriving at the periphery of their work area. Council vessels, he realized, but these were different from the attack squadron they'd encountered earlier. These were research ships, their sensors focused on the unprecedented display of coordinated creation happening before them. They're recording everything, one of the architects observed. The Council will study what we have accomplished here. Is that bad? Marcus asked. It is inevitable, Pyraxis replied, and perhaps necessary. They need to understand that the age of destruction is ending. The space-time wound gave a final shudder and sealed itself with a flash of light that seemed to come from dimensions beyond the visible spectrum. Where there had been a cancer eating away at reality, there was now simply normal space, healthy, stable, and beautiful in its ordinariness. Marcus felt a surge of accomplishment unlike anything he'd ever experienced. They'd actually done it. They'd healed a wound in space-time itself, proving that the cooperative philosophy the Galactic Council had tried to destroy was not only possible, but necessary for accomplishing the truly miraculous. Well done, the architect said, their harmonious thought voice carrying deep approval. You have taken the first step toward restoring what was lost. The first step? Marcus asked. There are dozens of such wounds throughout the galaxy, Pyraxis explained. Some far worse than this one. If we can heal them all, we'd be proving that the old way of doing things wasn't just better, Marcus realized. We'd be making it essential. The Council ships were moving closer now, their communications arrays active. Marcus could feel the tension of their crews, the uncertainty of beings who had just witnessed something that challenged every assumption they held about how the universe worked. They're scared, he observed. Of course they are, one of the architects replied. For 3 millennia, they have maintained power by ensuring that no one else could accomplish what they could not. Today, we have accomplished something beyond their wildest capabilities. The lead Council ship finally broadcast a message. Unknown entities, you have engaged in unauthorized manipulation of space-time in clear violation of galactic safety protocols. Identify yourselves and prepare to be escorted to the nearest Council facility for debriefing. Marcus felt Pyraxis' amusement ripple through their bond. They wished to debrief us on the successful completion of a task they deemed impossible. Should we respond? Marcus asked. I believe, said one of the architects, that actions will speak more clearly than words. As if by prearranged signal, the architect's ships began to move in perfect formation, their exotic hulls shimmering with barely contained energies. Pyraxis spread his wings wide, scales glowing with the residual power of their successful reality manipulation. And Marcus, perched between the dragon's shoulders, felt the weight of representing humanity in a moment that would reshape galactic politics. Are you ready, Marcus-chun? Pyraxis asked. What we do next will determine whether the galaxy embraces the new age we have begun or attempts to destroy it before it can take root. Marcus looked at the Council ships, at the architect vessels, at the space where they just performed a miracle of cooperative creation. He thought about the wound they'd healed, the network of partnerships they were rebuilding, and the possibilities that lay ahead. Let's go change the galaxy, he said. The next phase of their adventure was about to begin, and Marcus had the feeling it was going to be even more interesting than healing space-time had been. The Council facility on Nexus Prime was designed to intimidate. Its black spires reached toward the sky like accusatory fingers, and the approach corridor was lined with displays showcasing the Council's greatest victories over galactic threats. Marcus noted with dark amusement that most of the threats appeared to have been species that had simply refused to submit to council authority. "Cheerful place," he commented as they were escorted through security checkpoints that scanned for everything from unauthorized technology to suspicious thoughts. "They fear what they cannot control," Pyraxis replied through their bond, his mental voice carrying millennia of experience with authoritarian institutions. "These displays are meant to remind visitors that resistance is futile." "Yeah? Well, they clearly haven't met many humans." Their escort, a nervous Zephyrian official named Crix, kept glancing back at them with a mixture of awe and terror. Marcus couldn't blame him. The sight of a human casually riding a dragon through the most secure facility in the galaxy probably wasn't covered in standard protocol manuals. "The High Council is eager to speak with you," Crix said, his translator struggling with the complexity of his emotional state. "Your actions at the Kepler anomaly have caused considerable interest." Nothing gets politicians excited like proof that their worldview is completely wrong. The main council chamber was a study in intimidation through architecture. The ceiling soared hundreds of meters overhead, and the council members sat on a raised dais that forced visitors to crane their necks upward. Holographic displays showed the attending members who couldn't be present in person, creating a sense of vast, implacable authority. At the center of it all sat Chancellor Vex, an Altarian whose species had been among the founders of the Galactic Council. His four eyes regarded them with the kind of cold calculation that had maintained galactic order for 3,000 years. "Marcus Chun of Earth," Chancellor Vex said, his voice amplified to fill the massive chamber. Designation: Engineering Specialist, 3rd Class. No significant political affiliations. No criminal record. No apparent reason why you should be the center of the most significant political crisis the galaxy has faced in millennia. "I have a talent for being in the wrong place at the right time," Marcus replied, making no effort to project his voice. Pyraxis's presence amplified his words, ensuring they carried clearly to every corner of the chamber. "And you," the Chancellor continued, focusing his attention on Pyraxis. "Designation unknown. Species: dragon, subspecies solar. Status: supposed to be extinct. I find reports of my extinction to be greatly exaggerated," Pyraxis replied, his mental voice somehow reaching every mind in the chamber simultaneously. The effect on the council members was electric. Several actually flinched, and Marcus caught whispered conversations about emergency protocols and containment procedures. Chancellor Vex, to his credit, barely reacted. "Your existence presents a significant problem for galactic stability. The Dragon Purge was conducted for the safety of all civilized species. Your survival suggests either incompetence in its execution or deliberate deception." Or, Marcus interjected, "it suggests that the Purge was based on false assumptions from the beginning." The chamber erupted in alarmed murmurs. Several council members began speaking at once, their words overlapping in a cacophony of outrage and concern. Chancellor Vex raised one hand, and silence fell immediately. "You were not given permission to speak," he said coldly. "I don't need permission to state facts," Marcus replied. "The dragon sitting next to me just helped heal a 3,000-year-old wound in space-time itself. That doesn't sound like the action of a mindless destroyer to me." The Kepler anomaly was quarantined for good reason. Council member Thara of the Centauri Republic interjected. "Its effects were contained and manageable. Your unauthorized manipulation of it could have catastrophic consequences." The anomaly was growing, Pyraxis stated calmly. Left alone, it would have consumed the entire Kepler system within 5 centuries. "We prevented a disaster, not caused one." "Even if that were true," Chancellor Vex said, "you had no authority to take such action. The Council exists to prevent exactly this kind of reckless endangerment." Marcus felt his temper beginning to rise. "Right, because the Council has such a great track record with cosmic threats, like that weapon test that created the anomaly in the first place." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus could feel the weight of hundreds of stares the collective intake of breath from beings who weren't used to having their authority challenged so directly. That incident was regrettable, Chancellor Vex said carefully, but it predates the current council structure by 2 millennia. We cannot be held responsible for the actions of previous administrations. But you can be held responsible for ignoring the consequences, Marcus shot back. How many other quarantine disasters are sitting around the galaxy while the council pretends they don't exist? Before anyone could answer, new figures entered the chamber. The architects moved with their characteristic fluid grace, their translucent forms seeming to flow rather than walk. The council members' reaction was immediate and intense. Several rose from their seats, and Marcus caught fragments of whispered conversations about protocols and precedents. "Greetings, gathered council," the lead architect said, their harmonious thought voice reaching every mind present. "We come to speak of cooperation and healing." Chancellor Vex's composure cracked slightly. The architect collective withdrew from galactic politics 3 millennia ago. "What brings you back?" "Hope," the architect replied simply. "For the first time in 3,000 years, we have witnessed true cooperation between species." The healing of the Kepler anomaly was accomplished through a partnership that combined dragon power, human ingenuity, and architect precision. It represents a return to the principles that once made our galaxy a place of wonder. The principles that led to chaos and destruction, Council Member Court of the Rigel Alliance interjected. "The old ways failed. That's why the Council exists." "The old ways were destroyed before they could succeed," another architect replied. "The Council chose fear over cooperation, control over creativity. The results speak for themselves." Marcus seized the opening. "They're right. Look around this chamber. How many different species are represented on the Council? How many perspectives? How many different approaches to problems? The Council represents all major galactic civilizations," Chancellor Vex said defensively. "The Council represents the civilizations that were strong enough to survive the purges and compliant enough to accept Council authority," Marcus corrected. "How many species have been labeled as threats and eliminated over the past 3 millennia? How many potential partners have you destroyed in the name of stability?" "Precisely the question we came to ask," the lead architect said. "The galaxy has grown smaller and quieter under Council rule. Fewer innovations, fewer discoveries, fewer marvels. You have achieved stability at the cost of stagnation." Pyraxis stirred, his massive form shifting with barely contained energy. "I am the last of my kind because the Council feared what dragons could accomplish in partnership with others. But I am not the last being in this galaxy capable of transcending the limitations of a single species." "You're proposing a return to the chaos of the pre-Council era," Chancellor Vex said, his 4 eyes narrowing. "Species competing for resources, forming dangerous alliances, developing weapons of mass destruction without oversight. We're proposing a return to progress," Marcus said, "to the idea that different species working together can accomplish more than any single civilization working alone." And what the dragons' documented aggression? Their refusal to acknowledge Council authority? Their destructive capabilities? "My destructive capabilities," Pyraxis said, with what might have been amusement, "pale beside what I can create in partnership with others." The Kepler healing required more power and precision than any dragon has ever wielded alone. It was only possible because of cooperation. Marcus felt inspiration strike. "You want proof that the old way is better? Give us another problem. Something the Council can't solve with its current methods. Let us show you what partnership can accomplish." The chamber fell silent. Marcus could practically see the calculations running behind Chancellor Vex's eyes, weighing political risks against potential benefits. "There is a situation," the Chancellor said slowly. "The Terminus Rift in the Andromeda Spiral. It's been growing for over a millennium, and our best projections suggest it will destabilize the entire spiral arm within 10,000 years. We are familiar with the Terminus Rift," one of the architects said. "It is beyond current Council capabilities to repair. Our most optimistic estimates suggest a 15% chance of successful stabilization using conventional methods, Chancellor Vex admitted. The resources required would bankrupt half the galaxy, and the risk of cascade failure is considerable. Marcus exchanged a look with Pyraxis, their bond humming with shared excitement and determination. What do you say? Think we can heal something that's been eating a spiral arm for 1,000 years? With architect support and human ingenuity, I believe we could manage something far more ambitious than mere healing. What do you mean? Chancellor Vex asked sharply. The Terminus Rift is not just a wound in space-time, Pyraxis explained. It is a scar left by the collision of two black holes during the galaxy's formation. Rather than simply healing it, we could transform it into something useful. A gateway, perhaps, or a power source that could provide clean energy for entire civilizations. The implications hit the council chamber like a physical force. Marcus could see the political calculations shifting in real time as council members realized what was being proposed. Not just a solution to a galactic threat, but a demonstration that cooperative methods could achieve the impossible. If you could accomplish such a thing, Chancellor Vex said carefully, it would indeed be significant. It would be revolutionary, Marcus corrected. It would prove that the galaxy doesn't need the Council's approach to handle cosmic-scale problems. Cooperation works better than control. We propose a formal test, the lead architect interjected. Let this partnership attempt to resolve the Terminus Rift. If we succeed, the Council acknowledges the validity of cooperative methods. If we fail, we submit to Council authority and cease our activities. The silence stretched for long moments. Finally, Chancellor Vex spoke. Very well. You will have 1 galactic standard year to produce results. Council observers will monitor your progress. If you succeed in stabilizing the rift without causing broader damage, we will reassess our policies. Marcus felt a surge of triumph. They'd done it. They'd maneuvered the Council into giving them official sanction for their work. But Pyraxis's next words tempered his enthusiasm. Chancellor Vex, what you are not saying is that you expect us to fail. And when we do, you plan to use that failure as justification for even more restrictive policies. The Chancellor's expression didn't change. The Council exists to protect galactic civilization. We will take whatever actions that mission requires. Fair enough, Marcus said, climbing back onto Pyraxis's back. See you in a year. As they left the chamber, escorted by nervous security personnel, Marcus felt the weight of what they'd committed to. The Terminus Rift was orders of magnitude more complex than the Kepler anomaly. Failure wouldn't just discredit their approach. It could destabilize an entire spiral arm and kill billions of beings. Having second thoughts? Pyraxis asked as they reached the exit. Nah, Marcus replied. Just calculating the odds. Which, by the way, are terrible. I would be disappointed if they were anything else. We will not be working alone, the lead architect reminded them as they prepared to leave Nexus Prime. Word of what you accomplished at Kepler has spread. Species that the Council believed extinct are emerging from hiding. Others that submitted to Council authority out of necessity are reconsidering their positions. You mean we're starting a revolution? Marcus asked. We are starting a renaissance, Pyraxis corrected. A return to the Age of Wonders. The Council's rule is ending, Marcus Chun. The question is whether it ends through evolution or revolution. As they lifted off from Nexus Prime, Marcus looked back at the imposing spires of the Council facility. For 3,000 years, it had represented the ultimate authority in the galaxy. But that was about to change. The Age of Dragons was returning. And this time, they weren't coming alone. They had human engineers, architect wisdom, and growing support from species across the galaxy. The Terminus Rift would be their proving ground, but it wouldn't be their final victory. The real adventure was just beginning, and Marcus Chun, engineer and dragon rider, was going to help write the next chapter of galactic history, whether the Council liked it or not. The Terminus Rift was not just a wound in space-time. It was a screaming chasm that stretched across 3 light years and ate reality for breakfast. Standing at the observation deck of their mobile base, Marcus watched space itself twist into configurations that made his enhanced brain file formal complaints with his optical nerves. I take it back, he said to Pyraxis, who was perched beside the observation platform in a configuration that shouldn't have been physically possible given the station's dimensions. This is completely insane. You have said that about every major project we have undertaken, Pyraxis replied with fond amusement. Yet here we are. Yeah, but this time I really mean it. Look at that thing. It's not just broken space-time, it's space-time that's having an existential crisis. The dragons' laughter rumbled through their bond. Over the past year, their partnership had deepened beyond anything either species had thought possible. Marcus could now manipulate cosmic forces that would have vaporized his original human form, while Pyraxis had gained an appreciation for precision engineering that bordered on the obsessive. The preliminary surveys are complete, announced Zara, one of the architect engineers who had joined their expanding alliance. Her species' gift for harmonic resonance had proved invaluable in mapping the rift's chaotic structure. The damage extends through 11 dimensions and shows evidence of temporal recursion. Meaning, Marcus asked, though he was already processing the implications through his enhanced consciousness. Meaning the rift is not just expanding through space. It is expanding backward through time, gradually erasing the events that led to its creation. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's life support systems. So if we don't fix this soon, the collision that created it will retroactively never have happened, along with everything that has occurred in this spiral arm for the past billion years. Right? No pressure. Marcus turned to address the assembled team. Over the past year, their small partnership had grown into something resembling a small fleet. Representatives from dozens of species had arrived to assist or simply observe, creating the most diverse scientific collaboration in galactic history. Among them were the Ethereal Collective, beings of living energy who existed partially outside normal space-time. The crystalline hierarchies had sent their finest reality architects. Even humans had arrived, a small but enthusiastic delegation of engineers and scientists who were eager to see what their species could accomplish on a galactic stage. But the most significant addition to their team had arrived just 3 days ago. Status report from the secondary site? Marcus asked. Keth, a young Zephyrian scientist whose species had been among the dragon's historical allies, consulted his instruments. The artificial dragons are responding well to the quantum imprinting process. We should have 3 functional units within the week. Marcus still couldn't quite believe they'd managed to create artificial dragons. The project had been Pyraxis' idea, using architect biotechnology and human engineering to create beings that could channel dragon-level power without requiring 3 millennia of development. They're not true dragons, Pyraxis had explained when the first prototype emerged from its growth chamber. But they carry the essence of what we once were. And they are bonded to volunteers from other species, creating partnerships that rival our own. The artificial dragons were smaller than Pyraxis, but they compensated with specialized abilities. One was bonded with a human physicist and specialized in temporal manipulation. Another had partnered with an ethereal and could phase through dimensions at will. The third was allied with an architect and could reshape matter at the molecular level. Are you sure about this? Marcus asked for the 100th time. Creating new dragons feels like it should require more than advanced biotechnology and stubborn determination. Dragons were never about biology alone, Pyraxis replied. We are given form, consciousness crystallized into power. These new dragons may not share our history, but they share our essence. A communication alert interrupted their conversation. The image that appeared showed Chancellor Vex, looking significantly less composed than during their last meeting. Marcus Chun, the Chancellor said without preamble, our long-range sensors are detecting massive energy buildups throughout the Andromeda Spiral. Whatever you are doing, it is affecting space on a scale we have never observed. That's kind of the point, Marcus replied. You can't fix something this big without making big changes. Our projections suggest that your activities have a 43% chance of destabilizing the entire galaxy. Your projections, Pyraxis interjected, are based on council methodology. We are not using council methodology. What you are using appears to be completely unprecedented. the Chancellor said tightly. We have reports of space-time anomalies appearing throughout the spiral arm, temporal distortions that predate the rift itself, and energy signatures that don't correspond to any known physics. Marcus exchanged a look with Pyraxis. They'd been expecting this reaction. Their approach to the Terminus Rift required manipulating forces that the Council had never encountered. Chancellor, Marcus said carefully, what we're doing isn't just fixing the rift. We're rebuilding the entire causal structure of the region. That requires temporarily destabilizing things that have been stable for millions of years. Temporarily? The Chancellor's four eyes focused intently on the screen. For how long? About 36 hours, Marcus replied. Give or take a few minutes. The silence that followed was deafening. You were telling me that for the next day and a half, an entire spiral arm of the galaxy will be in a state of fundamental instability? Only if you insist on viewing it as instability, Pyraxis said with what Marcus had learned to recognize as his lecturing tone. From our perspective, it is controlled evolution. We are teaching reality how to be better than it was. Before the Chancellor could respond, alarms began blaring throughout their mobile base. Marcus rushed to the main display, where impossible readings were cascading across every sensor array. It's starting, Zara announced unnecessarily. The rift is responding to our preliminary adjustments. Through the observation windows, Marcus watched the impossible become routine. The rift, which had been a chaotic wound in space-time, was beginning to organize itself into patterns of incredible complexity. Streams of exotic matter flowed in precise mathematical curves, while dimensional barriers shifted to accommodate the new configuration. Phase 2, Marcus announced. Temporal integration. The artificial dragons launched from their staging areas, each accompanied by their bonded partners. Through his connection with Pyraxis, Marcus could feel their excitement and terror as they approached the rift's temporal distortions. What followed was the most complex engineering project in galactic history. Working in perfect coordination, the Dragon partnerships began weaving new timeline structures that would prevent the rift's retroactive effects while simultaneously channeling its chaotic energy into useful applications. Marcus found himself functioning as the coordination node for the entire operation. His consciousness expanded across multiple dimensional frameworks, while Pyraxis provided the raw power needed to maintain coherence. Through their bond, he could perceive the work of every team member, adjusting the overall strategy in real time as new challenges emerged. Temporal recursion is stabilizing, reported the human-artificial dragon partnership. But we're getting cascade effects in the lower dimensional matrices. Compensating, replied the ethereal dragon team, their combined consciousness shifting through probability streams to maintain causal coherence. The work was exhausting on a level that Marcus hadn't thought possible. He was essentially rebuilding the mathematical foundation of reality for an entire region of space, while simultaneously ensuring that the changes wouldn't propagate beyond their intended boundaries. And slowly, impossibly, it began to work. The Terminus Rift transformed before their eyes, its chaotic energies reorganizing into a structure of breathtaking beauty and functionality. What had been a wound became a gateway, not just through space, but through time and probability as well. Are you getting these readings? Marcus called out, his voice hoarse with effort. Confirmed, Zara replied, her harmonic voice carrying overtones of wonder. The transformed rift is generating stable space-time channels to 17 different galactic regions. And the energy output, it's enough to power the entire spiral arm for the next million years. We have not merely healed the wound, Pyraxis observed with satisfaction. We have transformed it into something that makes the galaxy more connected, more capable, more alive. But their triumph was interrupted by Chancellor Vex's voice cutting through the communications array. Unknown energy signatures detected throughout Council space, he announced grimly. Whatever you have done, it is affecting the entire galaxy. Marcus checked his instruments and felt his heart skip several beats. The transformation of the Terminus Rift had indeed sent ripples throughout the galaxy, but not destructive ones. Instead, it was awakening dormant potential in regions that had been stable for millennia. "Chancellor," he said slowly, "I think you need to see this." The data stream he transmitted showed energy readings from across Council space. Ancient artifacts were activating. Dormant stellar phenomena were coming to life. Most significantly, regions of space that had been considered empty were revealing complex structures that had been hidden for millions of years. "What have you done?" the Chancellor whispered. "We have awakened the galaxy," Pyraxis replied. "For 3,000 years, the Council's focus on stability and control suppressed the natural evolution of space-time itself. The galaxy has been sleeping, dreaming of what it might become. Today it wakes up." As if to underscore his words, reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. The Magellanic Clouds were exhibiting new stellar formation patterns. The galactic core was generating harmonic resonances that seemed almost musical. Most dramatically, regions of space that had been considered unreachable were suddenly accessible through naturally occurring dimensional gateways. The galaxy is growing, Marcus realized, not just physically, but in terms of its fundamental capabilities. "This is what cooperation can accomplish," one of the architects added. "When species work together instead of competing or controlling, they don't just solve problems, they transcend the limitations that created the problems in the first place." Chancellor Vex was quiet for long moments, processing reports from across Council space. Finally, he spoke. "The Council hereby acknowledges that your methods have achieved results beyond our most optimistic projections. The question now is what comes next." "What comes next," Marcus said, looking around at their diverse team of collaborators, "is that the galaxy gets to choose its own future instead of having one imposed on it." "The age of imposed order is ending," Pyraxis agreed. "The age of cooperative creation is beginning." Over the following months, the changes rippled throughout galactic civilization. Species that had hidden from the Council emerged to share their knowledge. Ancient alliances were renewed, and new partnerships formed. The network of cooperation that the Dragon Purges had destroyed began to rebuild itself, stronger and more inclusive than ever before. Marcus found himself at the center of it all, serving as an ambassador between species and a coordinator for increasingly ambitious projects. The transformation of the Terminus Rift had been just the beginning. With dragons restored to their role as partners rather than threats, and with humanity's gift for adaptive engineering bridging the gaps between different approaches to science, the galaxy was accomplishing wonders. "Any regrets?" Pyraxis asked one day as they watched the construction of a massive collaborative research station near the transformed rift. Marcus considered the question seriously. His life had become something unimaginable. He was now bonded with a dragon, enhanced beyond baseline humanity, and involved in reshaping galactic civilization. He couldn't return to his old life, even if he wanted to. "None," he said finally. "Well, maybe one." "What is that?" "I'm going to have to update my resume," Marcus replied. "How do you even describe helped restart galactic renaissance in a job application?" Pyraxis's laughter echoed through their bond and across the construction site, where dozens of species were working together to build something impossible and beautiful. The galaxy had awakened from 3,000 years of enforced sleep. The Age of Wonders had returned, and Marcus Chun, engineer and dragon rider, had helped make it all possible. Sometimes, he reflected, curiosity really was worth the risk.